We're going to be starting the workshop any minute.
Right.
Okay, we'll go ahead and officially open the workshop, and I'm gonna turn it over to David to present the budget.
Thank you, Chairman. This is our first of many budget development workshops for our 2014-15 budget cycle. As you know, we're almost halfway through the year with our current budget, and it's time to start budgeting again. It seems like in government you either are budgeting or putting agendas together, because you finish one budget year and you got to start the next budget year. But this is the process that we have to go through. The primary objective of this first budget development workshop is to have free and open discussion with the board and seek direction on non-specific issues, initiatives, and kind of just get a feel of the board and what your willingness is to go along with some of the high-level issues. Another thing that's not in here is that we all talked about as part of the budget as well, is we're going to talk about the fine and forfeiture fund and some possibilities of where it's heading and some ways maybe to help us pull out of that. Which the problem is you know, the fine and forfeiture fund could affect what else we're doing, but but we need to be able to cover all these: capital project implementation, cost of living, a COLA increase for our employees, and then health insurance cost increase. And we're going to discuss those in general terms. But I'd first like to, since Sheriff's here, and that's first and foremost in everybody's minds, no sense in putting anything off. Let's talk about the fine and forfeiture fund, if that is okay with you guys. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. I've got a few things I want to read in just to kind of set the tone and set everything up. As you know, we're the problem with the fine and forfeiture fund balance at this point in time is our jail bed revenue is down, and it's all, but more than anything, it's unpredictable. We don't have a set number to go to, so that makes it very difficult to make any decisions on. So that's kind of the way I've set this up. But I'm just going to read from here. When I was hired as county administrator just over 2.5 years ago, the county faced many physical challenges over the past 2 years to address our financial situation. We've made unprecedented changes to the county budget process to achieve a balanced budget, ensuring that the county could operate within its means and to not pass the burden on to the taxpayer or reduce vital services to our citizens. In 2012, Wakulla County was just starting to come out of a terrible economic downturn. Our budget suffered because of the downturn, as well as some decisions that were made that went south. The first objective was to establish and ensure current and future solvency, which required a practical and simple approach of not only correcting the financial direction, but setting a path to the future balanced budgets. To accomplish this objective, ownership of the budget and ownership of the bottom line had to be the priority, first and foremost. Therefore, the task was to examine the entire budget, each fund and each constitutional office, and to analyze each of these elements to determine if it was functioning properly. Could it be easily monitored, and if the performance could be tracked? What I found was that the county budget was difficult at best to fully determine performance and responsibility. As you know, this leads to lack of ownership. Another major problem encountered was a lack of looking forward or future planning. The county had no 5-year operational plan. To address these major problems and unanticipated consequences of such, we set out to fix the problems discussed above by establishing a 5-year operational plan for the entire county, and to identify and analyze each revenue source to determine its performance, establish performance measures, tracking of the revenue, and accountability of the revenue to supplement the 5-year operational plan. A capital plan for each of the non-constitutional funds was implemented to address problems or sustainability issues. During this process, several revenue streams were identified that needed prompt attention. One was the jail bed revenue, EMS revenue, grant revenue, sewer revenue, road and bridge revenue, water, solid waste, PST tax, as well as the park and facility rental fees. Next, all expense centers were analyzed to determine performance as follows: facilities management and maintenance, EMS and fire overtime spending, EMS management, vehicle maintenance, O&B department, and then the proper allocations of our contract force into the different funds, because what had happened was that every year those allocations changed to affect when one department, one fund was failing, they would change the allocation to make it look good while they build up another one. So the allocations kept changing. We solidified that. We had an allocation study. It is what it is, and that's what, unless something changes, those allocations will stay the same because it's based upon true math and the true allocation of like ESG's contract. All that did was give us a true picture. You can't make a determination off of unless you have a true picture of what you got. Then the focus turned to making all expense centers and funds perform and making someone responsible and accountable. First, a look at the road and bridge, sewer and water and solid waste was done by breaking each fund down, how it was structured, managed, allocated. Modifications were made to each fund by either shoring up revenue, cutting expenses as needed. Each fund was then set up to be sustainable for the long term with a plan for each fund to ensure performance and solvency well into the future. I also made sure that ESG, our public works folks, they had ownership of those funds. That was key. EMS was corrected and continues to improve in revenue collection of EMS billings. Overtime issues for fire and EMS were addressed, and accountability over overtime issues were established. Cross-training program was implemented allowing EMS staff to obtain a fire certification and fire personnel to obtain a paramedic certification. This cross-training had two positive outcomes. One, it gave a pay increase through obtaining additional certifications, but secondly, the county won because we actually reduced the need to hire additional personnel to cover the increased call and transport volumes. We strongly regulated the vehicle maintenance program and began a replacement program based on a vehicle's performance and age. As to vehicle maintenance, to increase the life cycle of all the county vehicles and minimize the cost, of maintenance program for each county vehicle was established. The ESG is now performing general maintenance on each BOCC vehicle. Prior to this process, each department was going to different vendors and the cost was uncontrollable and exorbitant. The boating fund was established, which was needed to properly maintain and improve the county-owned boat ramps as well as navigational aids. Each dollar collected goes to the maintenance of our marine. The park department is responsible for this fund. The analysis of funds and expense centers was expanded to include the fine and forfeiture fund, including the sheriff's department. This review found the sheriff's office budget was so mixed and commingled into the general fund that it was difficult at best to analyze and identify ownership of the budget. Experienced budget person in government could have probably figured it out, but me as a layman, I couldn't figure it out because there wasn't a bottom line. To reconcile and get a clear picture of this fund, all corrections and law enforcement revenues and expenses were moved into the fine and forfeiture fund. The remaining constitutional officers that were not in separate funds were reviewed. It was determined that each constitutional officer should be in its own fund. A separate fund was established so that now each constitutional officer is responsible for managing and balancing this budget. They have their own fund. A system was set up for each constitutional office to keep a portion of their annual savings for contingency purposes. All this leads us to where we are today. As you know, the fine and forfeiture fund is not performing at pace and cannot sustain itself into the future. which is primarily due to unstable ICE revenues. The ICE revenue is a critical problem we face today, and as a result of many things that happened in the past, mainly decisions that were made that ended up taking instead of using it for capital purposes, it was used to supplement the budgets and put into the general fund to supplement taxes. As the ICE revenues continue to fluctuate downward, the budget adjustments are needed to curb the damage. If we continue to do nothing, this is what we'll face. The ICE revenue is trending at $2 million annual pace, which is $500,000 less in revenues than projected by the Sheriff's Office. Based on assuming $2 million revenue and not reducing spending in the fine and forfeiture fund, we will lose $570,000 this year, resulting in a decrease of the demand of the combined fund balance of the rainy day fund and the fine and forfeiture fund down from $1 million to $433,000. At this projected rate, the combined fine and forfeiture fund and rainy day fund will go negative next year. The general fund will then have to step in and pick up the deficit, and the general fund could possibly only sustain this until fiscal year 18 and 19, and then the governor will come knocking on our door. Here's a couple of things I've talked about. That's the past, what's got us to today. This is immediate action that is needed to lessen the damage this year and future budgets. I suggest these, and I'm suggesting these to you guys and the sheriff. Sheriff's Department needs to adjust their budgets, their spending for the remainder of the year, to try and save every dollar possible, because every dollar that's saved today goes straight to the bottom line. That needs to be adjusted. We need to institute as a general fund. General fund needs to institute spending adjustments as well. We're going to look at everything that we're spending. Only critical needs to be spent. I will bring so anyway, that is those are things that need to be done today. There's some other things in here that we need to have done, but those are the critical things that needs to happen, and also continuing of the monitoring of the revenue stream, and be ready to adjust plans and spending as necessary. Other actions that need to be taken that are not immediate but required prior to finalization of next year's budget. Commissioners and sheriff must work side by side and develop a formal strategy to lobby ICE to stabilize the revenue stream to include a guaranteed minimum. This strategy may have to include a federal lobbying firm, federal ICE consultant that can help the county with this task. Continue the political pressure as well, but not rely solely on this strategy for resolution of the problem. I think that's the most critical thing, that we've got to have a concerted effort between the BOCC and the Sheriff's Office, is put together a formal plan with milestones, and we may end up having to spend money to get a consultant to help us. I think the Sheriff's Department of Passes has an attorney they've used up there. But we got to make serious, if we want this revenue, we got to get serious about, and not to say we haven't been serious, but we got to develop a formal strategy to move forward so that we can attack this at a much higher and much more aggressive rate than what we've done. But and understand, Sheriff Krill is talked till his ears, till his teeth are about to fall out. But at the end of the day, it helps when we have the commission on board, which y'all are, but maybe a task force to go to Washington and actually go knock on the ICE doors, guy, and look at them face to face, tell them the problem. We've got to take measures here that we haven't thought about. Then I think the BOCC should form and fund an independent special operational audit committee to perform an operational audit of the Sheriff's Department, both corrections and law enforcement. This audit should sectionalize each department and or area of responsibility and individually analyze staffing and spending based on each section's performance standards and workload to determine each section's importance to the overall mission of the Sheriff's Department. This is recommended because the Sheriff's Department is the largest part of our fund here in the county. So therefore, and also it really hasn't. It's an old organization that hasn't officially reorganized in the past. So therefore, we need to take a look at that. And also what that does is that just cuts out a lot of the questions that everyone has. Is this department too big? Is that department too big? Had the same problem in general fund, and it doesn't bother me. In fact, I talked to Mary Dean about this, that we should roll that over into the general fund. That's fine if we want to take a look at that, because there may be some synergies, and I hate that word, some synergies that we could use, that we could maybe double up or couple up some stuff. As well as we may not be doing everything correctly. All right, then we get into options. I think we should develop and advertise an RFP to privatize all jail functions. This would test the market to see how much this option would cost the county or we would save, and determine whether or not this is a feasible option and whether we even want to go there. Okay, that's a check on the box. Another check on the box is develop and advertise an RFP or ITB to sell the corrections facility with a long-term inmate housing agreement for local inmates. The next one is county staff, and most importantly, county staff must continue to work with each other on budget options. There are currently 6 options being debated. One of the options will need to be selected and then set into motion next fiscal year. In conclusion, we can correct this problem together, but it requires full cooperation of all: my office, clerk's office, sheriff's office. We must also act with extreme urgency. However, to resolve this problem and sustain our budget into the future, the sheriff's department must take ownership of this fund. I can't stress that enough. Manage it to the bottom line and continue to give quality service to the citizens based on that bottom line. I say all this, these are my words. I want to have an open conversation about these, get you guys what you think, and kind of where we want to get started. Any comments on that from anyone?
Well, I'll speak to 2 things, and I'll start it off. One, I do agree that sheriff's office needs to have ownership of their budget. I do believe that. But the other thing I feel strongly about that the county should maintain ownership of the jail. You know I'm a correctional officer by trade, a state correctional officer, a public correctional officer, and I'm against privatizing of the jail. I'm against privatizing the jail. I'm against selling the facility. I think that the county needs to maintain ownership of the jail, and that we should maintain the public having public staff running it as well.
I don't think it would hurt to look and see what's there. It may prove that it's not a viable option at all, and we can all stop talking about it.
Yeah.
I think that's what his point was.
I understand.
Yeah, it wasn't that we were going to necessarily do that.
But I do believe the sheriff's office needs to have ownership of their fund and their budget. I do believe it.
We're not at the point where we need to start furloughing people.
No.
We're not at that crisis level yet.
No, but, naturally, if we don't react and we don't do anything this year and we don't do anything this coming up year, then yeah, we're going to be fastly approaching that.
Yeah.
As you can see, if you don't mind, Paige, pull up that spreadsheet I gave you, please.
While you're doing that,
I don't know if we're going to be able to see it or not.
I'm not a big fan of privatization of jails and corrections, but I think that we have to look at all options, and I think we need to get those answers so that we can make better decisions. So I'm for at least putting those RFPs and whatever that other alphabet soup was out there to. If we have a building that becomes unviable for the county to run, holding on and take action accordingly.
Well, we can see what's coming. We talked about this before, and this would be, when I first got here, Jerry, when you got here, the county was, right on the edge of failure. I don't know what the reserve was down. David, you weren't here at the time, but it was $200-something thousand in reserve we had left, and we couldn't make it another year. And you know, if this had been addressed, if that situation had been addressed a few years before, it was seen coming, it would have been a lot easier. So, we know it's coming, we got it about it. I talked to Mary Dean today, and my basic, only direction I could give her was, y'all get together and figure it out. And you don't want 5 politicians to meet twice a month trying to solve an issue like this up at a board meeting or a workshop.
I think that, I think we'll have an obligation to responsibility of the county
I agree.
as a whole. And although I nor you want to be advising our sheriff or any other constitutional officer of how to tighten their belt, we do have an obligation to say we can only provide X amount of dollars, and that's where we are.
And I think, Howard, that's a fundamental conflict. I don't know if I would call it a conflict. One side, talked to Mary Dean, taking sides on this issue. Their position is that we tell you what we need to spend, you figure out how to pay for it. And I think David's position is we tell you how much you have to spend, and you figure out how you want to spend it. Now, those are two fundamentally different theologies about budgeting, if you will. And I think all of them need to know what our position is. Now, the sheriff, Charlie, can say, here's my budget. We can say we can't afford that. He can go appeal it to the governor, and the governor can override us. But I guess they really need to know what...
Okay, I think Commissioner Moore will speak next.
I've heard from the sheriff that basically he was thinking about a independent audit. I've heard from David that David was thinking about an independent audit. I have told David, I don't know if David's numbers are correct, and I don't know if I've told the sheriff, but I will, is I don't know if your numbers are correct. It's I think a independent audit without any of us being on that audit committee would be a fair thing to do, to have somebody who has no whatever, no dog in the fight, to come up and say, well, this is where, because I can't go with your numbers. I probably could, but you say you're right. David, I can't go with his because he's got his position, and I don't know whose position is. But if we do an independent audit, then basically I think that's a fair way to approach it, and then we just have to make hard decisions based on that information.
An independent audit of both the general fund and the fine and forfeiture fund, right?
Well, we want to let the end of the problem we have is the problem we have is the budget of the sheriff's department. It would be good if it was level. So we do an independent audit of the sheriff's department to see where that he can save money. To see, maybe he's operating at 100% efficiency. If he is, then we've got a real problem. But at least we would have the information from somebody who's not biased to do that. And I will do whatever I can to make sure that's not a bias whatever.
Would we have to contract out, or who would be on the audit team? Who would make up the individual
Well,
audit
that's
team?
something that what we can do is we can bring back some at the next meeting, not one tonight, but the following meeting, and bring you some options. We'll get together with Sheriff Krill, and we can bring you some options of a structure of either one independent auditor or a team or whatever that is.
Someone agreeable to both parties, too.
Well, yeah, that's right, and because you need to have somebody, that way when we spend the money and/or we have other people looking at it, you want to make sure that you've got that it's a complete, clear eyes, 20/20. I don't care, I don't have allegiances one way or the other on this issue, just what do the numbers say and what is the staffing, yeah.
David, I want to thank you for bringing that audit up, because I wholeheartedly support that. That's something that's got to be done. I've said all along it needs to be done. I'd like to go farther on it, not only a full comprehensive audit of spending, but also manpower allocation, whether we're up or down compared to other counties of our size. As far as ICE goes, I have met with Congressman Sutherland on this. I have talked to Senator Nelson's office. My suggestion is, in talking to them, that we make an appointment with Senator Nelson and get on his calendar, and we bring our attorney in Washington that's been working on these issues with us, and call ICE into Senator Nelson's office and sit down and explain to them exactly what our problem is. You know, we can't run a business without knowing what kind of income we're having come in every month, any guaranteed income. We have got to get them. We just went up $5.12 a day on our for each detainee. These are not inmates; they're detainees. But we need a guaranteed number from them. We need that. My suggestion that when we do go up to Washington, that somebody from the board, and maybe even yourself, David, myself, and Mary Dean, we go up there and have this meeting and sit down and talk with them. It's our understanding, and we don't know how hardball to play with them, because we don't want to call their bluff and then take it. But it's our understanding they need us more than we need them, because of what's going on with this building they built in Tallahassee.
Probably the sequester really hurt you bad too, didn't it?
Killed us. It killed us. The sequester
I think
killed
everybody
us.
understands, no fault of yours, but like I say, when the sequester went in, the ICE prisoners dropped dramatically, and I don't think they've recovered since then, have they?
No, they haven't. They haven't. They go up, they come down. And this is not today's problem or yesterday's problem. Some of you have seen a copy of the letter that we got that Sheriff Harvey wrote 20 years ago, saying that we've got to wean ourselves off of this because it's not guaranteed income. This has been going on for a long time, and it should have been addressed. And I'm not going to point fingers and say this board should have done it or that board should have done it, but this should have been done a long, long time ago before any of us were involved in politics. And it's going to take some belt tightening. It's going to take all of us working together. I want us to be able to agree to disagree on stuff, but at the end of the day, we're all neighbors. We all live in a small county, and we just need to work through it together.
Can I ask a couple of questions? We heard a statement saying that we can't believe our numbers, we can't believe your numbers. Do you, looking at the numbers that we produce as a county and doing our assessment of where we stand financially, do you have any real issues with what we're producing as far as numbers? Well, our budget process, the numbers that we have in our budget process.
In fact, this morning, as of, well, I reckon up until about lunchtime, the numbers are the numbers, but at the end of the day, the biggest question that we had today was straightening it out between Greg and Mary Dean was primarily allocations and how money was allocated. Dollar figures necessarily didn't change, but it was how things are allocated. Okay. That's your biggest question, because the dollar figure is the dollar figure.
Right, right. It is.
We know our revenues and expenses.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That, the numbers are there.
Yeah, the allocations were what kind of got a little.
Good. And then the other comment I'll make is that I understand we've been very reliant on ICE, but we have the facility. The facility is starting to definitely trend in negative numbers, towards negative numbers.
Right.
We should not just restrict ourselves to ICE. We need to look at all options to make that building an income source.
We do. In the past, they had jail bed revenue from state inmates, which they don't have anymore. That brought in a lot of money. There's been some talk of throwing ICE out. We're spending roughly $990,000 a year for salaries to keep ICE in there. But we're bringing in $1.3, $1.4 million, so that it's making money. It's just not making as much as we would like it to.
Well, I think it's bringing more like $3 million, isn't it, Charlie?
1.3 is your profit. Yeah, 1.3 is our profit.
Right.
Believe me, it's a headache. It is a headache to me. It's a headache to Trey. It's a headache to Mary Dean. We compared notes this morning in our first meeting. We'd all been up since 3 o'clock worried about this stuff. I thought back to what somebody told me back in 2011, when I told them I was going to run for office again, and they said, "Have you lost your mind?" And now I think I probably did. Going through this stuff, but we're going to work it out.
Bad timing, Charlie.
I would, as Donnie Crum told me one time, I would love to have been around when there was money flowing.
Oh yeah.
But we're not in those times
Anybody
now.
can do it then.
Oh, it's easy.
Right.
But we just need to work together through it.
One way, the way we find out where everything is, we can't make decisions and we find out where everything is, and that's done with an audit.
I think so. I agree, Commissioner Moore, 100%. The sooner the better, David. We need to get together and choose somebody that we want to come in here and do this, and let's get the ball rolling.
I agree.
President Gibbons, you may want to check the Regional Planning Council and see. They do a lot.
Well, I
of
think it's going to be,
security.
both Charlie and I, we need to check resources and sources and all that stuff and try to figure, because the national or state sheriff's organization, they may have some recommendations as well.
They may, and there's a
Neutral party.
Yeah, that's right. We want to make sure it's neutral.
Right,
That's
right.
So it doesn't do any good to spend any money and it be biased one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's got to be down the middle. That's
There
right.
is a CPA firm in Tallahassee that specializes in going in and looking at business and looking at government organizations that tell you that to be leaner or it's not running right. Good thing about them, and I don't know that much about them, Mary Dean does, they're local, so we would not have to pay travel costs.
I personally think that they should be paid for by the board. That's just
Yeah,
my
yeah,
opinion.
well,
I like that idea.
Yeah. He loves that idea.
I'll take that check right now.
It's all our money, you know what I mean?
It is, it's all our
But
money.
they'd be, if you were paying them to do the work, they'd be answerable to you.
That's correct.
And if the board pays them, it gives the citizens out there knowing this was not Charlie's hand-picked person to come look at it.
I'll be, whoever you choose, if it takes them a week or 2 weeks, I'll be glad to take annual leave and disappear. I don't have anything to do with it. Let them have at it.
Me too.
We'll go fishing. It's I welcome an audit. Let them come in and turn everything over, look under every doormat, whatever we got. Here it is.
I appreciate you welcoming the audience. That's nice.
I'm also in favor of the audit. I want to ask David if you think by the next meeting y'all could have some suggestions of who to go to.
We'll have, we'll
Have to do it RFP or RFQ, I assume.
Just as soon as we can get the audit, as soon as everyone knows where we stand and how we can
have
proceed
to
from
do
there.
it.
Okay.
Is there someone under state contract or something?
One place you can look is at all.
Yeah, we'd probably have to do an RFP, but yeah, we'll get something to, I don't know if we can have an RFP quite ready by then, but we'll see what we can do. But the biggest thing is I want to bring back some, we'll have that, but I also want to bring back some options because I think you not only need to have your audit person, but we need to have, there needs to be 2 or 3 people there to make sure that everything stays on an equal line, but I may be wrong there, but we'll bring back some options and you guys can decide what you want to do and go from there.
I fully support it too, because either way it turns out, they may say you're running everything just the way it needs to be, like Jerry said, then we got a problem. We got to figure out a way to come up.
Well, I welcome it because it might tell me we're running everything the way it's supposed to be, but they might come up with some things that we can improve on that we will do. David, I don't know if you've thought of the Auditor General's office as being an option, but there's one there.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that they tell you that you're paying for too much stuff that the counties should be paying for.
You mean all the stuff we do in that building and we absorb it?
If he's going to do a good audit, he's going to ask you why you're paying for these things when the county should be paying for them.
That's true.
I think a good example, you said today you have 4 people that are there just to do EMS and fire dispatch.
That's right.
And that theoretically could be paid for the MSBU, I guess. I mean, I don't know if those are flush with cash or not.
Well, I think a portion of that, but I mean that's something that you look at your emergency and your 911. Does it but they dispatch sheriff too.
Yeah, I understand.
So
he said there was an extra person.
Well, the extra person, and that's fine. And like I say, the MSBU can easily.
Well,
not easily.
all I'm
They
saying
can
is
pay for it.
If it's $75 a house, how much is it now?
Huh?
MSBU fire, I mean...
$75.
All right, so it's 75, and we can allocate and say it's realistic that we need to pay for those dispatch. We could raise it to 78 or whatever. I know nobody around likes to talk about things like that, but these are the things we got to think about.
The same difference with the people out on the road work and doing the parades. Who is actually supposed to pay for his people to Monitor a
his-
parade.
We're not demanding that he do that.
I think the churches do pay you guys, don't they, when you do traffic and stuff like that?
No.
That's up to the sheriff's department how they do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that, that's the issue. We don't want to be in there micromanaging a sheriff's department and saying where he needs to make cuts or not. I think, though, what is vital, well, first of all, I'm going to say that no matter what the audit finds, we have a problem here.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not something that, well, this audit is going to, okay, everything's great. So we have a problem, we have to act on it, and the bottom line is that each one of our constitutional officers, and including the board, has a budget that they have to try to live within. And that's the problem going on right now. So, and again, I think that besides ICE, we should be looking at any other options that are there that can supplement rentals.
Is it
Correct.
possible to raise revenue from the shooting range, for example?
The shooting range is just about self-sufficient now. Now, we've got 3 people that are assigned down there full-time, but our training is ongoing, constant. I mean, they have to have training every year in this, every quarter in this, but as far as the range goes, throwing the salaries out, because you got to have those people down there anyway. If you send them to Tallahassee somewhere training and paying a lot more for it, the range is pretty well self-sufficient.
Do other governmental agencies like FWC or something use it and pay you for that?
I think we've got 12 agencies now, including U.S. Marshals, Department of Law Enforcement. We got a lot of agencies that do train down there, and they pay us. And we've got individual members. What is it, 800 now, or something like that? About 800 private citizens that are members. It was a deal. They were paying $75 a year to go down there and shoot all they want, whereas the closest one is probably $220 a year. I just went up the 1st of January to $120 a year to raise more revenue, because there's things out there that we have to have. We out of this fund, we bought a tracker to keep the range mowed and cleaned up, because we got members coming down there and we want it to look nice. Painting, we've done that. We just did a new target system that we paid for out of the range funds. So it does make money.
Again, not micromanaging.
Well, and that is
Kind of
another
idea.
thing that I was going to suggest, is that, we take and unrestrict all the restricted funds and pull them into the fine and forfeiture fund, because, if you're going to fix a problem, you need to flood all your business. They say, if I got my main LLC my main company is faltering, I'm going to take all my LLCs and I'm pulling them in. I pull in and circle the wagons. So that would be an option as well that the sheriff should do as well, but the board would have to unrestrict those funds and make them unrestricted funds and pull them into the fine and forfeiture fund. Therefore, every dollar that hits the top line that's over the expense of whatever department it is makes a difference. And
Would everyone agree that to give them direction to prepare something to unrestrict those funds?
Well, I would like to know from the sheriff if he's in agreement with that concept.
I would say so, yes.
All right, well, if he's in agreement with that concept, I would go in that direction.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I would, as far as dollar amount, about how much dollar amount do you think that makes up the unrestricted?
I have no idea. And it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of pulling everything together to where, like I said, it makes $10,000 this year. That's $10,000 that goes to the fine and forfeiture fund. And you know what I mean? That's where you got to pull every dime and everything that you can together. Because in the future, it would be something he could raise. Heck, if he could get that up to $100,000 a year, I don't know if he ever could, but if he did, that's money. That's money. 10,000 is money.
$1 million there, you're talking real
Well,
money.
that's basically, those are all things that an audit would show, really. I agree with
Right,
you.
but that's just regular common sense stuff.
Yeah,
if you're gonna discuss
I
it.
agree with you on that. In the final analysis, if the sheriff takes in 90 cents and his expense, if his whole take-in is 90 cents from everywhere, and his expenses are $1, then basically we know where we are. The bottom line is we've got to know where we are. And that's got to be done with an audit, an impersonal audit.
Mhm.
Since this is our first development there is another way to solve the problem, of course, and that's to increase taxes.
No.
No.
I didn't figure, well,
No.
I mean, at least they need to know that that's not even on the board.
That's not, that's not on my mind.
Not for me.
That is option 2, by the way.
That's
Yeah,
not on
well,
the board.
In no
That's not on
particular
my
order,
mind.
it is option 2. You could add $1 million to it, and you could be a fund
I'm
balance.
hoping that
I'm
this
not
can be
recommending
fixed
that.
within the, I'm hoping that this can be fixed within the sheriff's office somehow, within that particular
They
fund.
need
I
to know that
understand.
we're not even gonna
Well,
think
Right.
about it.
now, and before you say that, here's what you got to face. Is we say, okay, we do this operational audit, and the audit says, okay, sheriff's department, they can cut $100,000. We go to ICE. ICE says, okay, I'll give you $1.5 million guarantee. All right, we budget to that. All right, then we've got a big decision to make. You say, okay, Charlie, here is $6 million to run the sheriff's department. He says, well, I can do that, but it means I'm going to have 2 patrolmen out there, one investigator, and Trey's going to be cleaning the bathrooms and out on patrol and the
He does
judge
that
all
now.
at the same time, and locking people up in the jail, because he's Superman. So, okay, well, that's a level of service. That, to me, that's where it's fairly easy. Here's your money. Here's your level of service. Then you say, okay, David, well, here's what you got to do now, because we got to supplement. I say, okay, well, here's the department that's got this department, this department, this department, and this department has to be cut. And we're like, wait just a minute. We don't want to cut recreation. We got to have recreation for our kids. And you say, well, daggum, what can we do? That's where you don't ever, and I'm not saying do it, but that's where you don't throw out every option, because if the
Recreation hasn't
voters,
got any money anyway.
because if the voters want these things, and we can justify and say, we're running them as efficient as possible, and if you want them, here's what it's going to cost.
We give
Put it to a vote if
Yeah, you
if we
put it
get
to
to
a
that
vote.
point. Vote of the citizens. If
Yeah.
the citizens want to raise $1 million, and then we'll let the citizens decide that.
But if
in
I
my
was a
opinion.
citizen, I'd at least want to know, have you done every dadgum thing
Yeah.
possible?
That's where the audit comes in. It tells us and the sheriff as to where he should be, and we help him to maintain that level.
Ralph, are you saying set the millage rate by referendum of the citizens? I think that's what he was referring
No,
to.
I
Not the
think,
millage rate, but I'm saying if we wanted to do a tax increase, a major tax increase because we got a short, it ought to be an easy thing for us to say, well, this is how big the pie is, this is how we're going to cut it up.
Well,
We're going to make somebody happy, we're going to make somebody mad. But if we want to get to the point where there's just physically not enough money and we can't come up with the cuts, then I think that we probably ought to consider putting that to a vote of the citizens. And if they want, just like the 1 cent sales tax, the citizens decided they wanted the 1 cent sales tax, and we used that for roads and law enforcement, and we put that to a vote of the citizens.
But us as a board either raise the millage rate or raise the PST to offset that cost too. We don't need to ask citizens to set the millage rate.
Right.
Yeah, let's
That's
don't even
up
get
to
into
us.
that conversation until we have to.
And Randy and I discussed this morning, and the PST is fair to everyone, because we've got so many people that don't pay any taxes whatsoever, and those are the people that we are servicing the most, that we're getting calls to. Getting back to the parades, it takes 11 people to run a parade, law enforcement people. Most of them are volunteers. We pay the other 2, overtime or comp it out or whatever, but there has to be some amount of citizen pride that we have to have with our 4 or 5 parades down here, that we'll have to just find that money or comp it out to whoever's doing it, but we're not going to stop parades.
One of the things that you'll find as the county grows, this is just a fact, it will become less cohesive, and actually your parades will drop off. The number of parades you have will drop off. The first thing you will have 4, and then you'll have 3, and whatever. But
We've already dropped 1 this year.
that's the way it'll happen.
That's not going to solve the problem.
We've already dropped 1. As far as our looking at things on the inside, the regional vice president for Armor Medical will be here on Wednesday. He's got to face my bulldog over here, and we're going to go after them to cut. We're going to go after them
It's a big expense.
to cut it. Yes, it is. But if we have to put it out for an RFP, we'll do it.
I would do that irregardless, just to see what's there. I mean, that's up to you, it's your department.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they went up, what, $200,000 or $300,000 last year because of some federal requirements, I think.
Right.
About
right.
having somebody on staff or whatever.
Right,
but
right. But as David said about the, cutting manpower to, we got 2 road deputies out there. They're going to be running from call to call. There's not going to be any proactive law enforcement. They won't be able to check business doors at night. They won't be able to ride through neighborhoods. They're going to be going from call to call to call. And once that happens, your crime rate's going to skyrocket. And I can tell you right now, with the people that we've got there working, Department of Law Enforcement just released their stats. They haven't released them publicly for 2013 over 2012. Crime rate in Wakulla County dropped 17.7% over 2012. Burglaries dropped 31%. And this is just a direct example of those deputies being out there proactively engaging in law enforcement, catching people burglarizing. And
I wouldn't say citizens don't mind paying taxes, but they feel a little better about it if they think their money's being spent fairly, and I think that'll go a long way with this audit. And then we need to decide what level of service we're comfortable with, and then we charge the citizens.
Well, not only that, there's always been a perception out there that the sheriff's office is a boogeyman. They're top heavy. They spend all the county's money, and they waste. And we need to change that perception. And an audit will go a long way changing that perception.
That's the best thing that can happen to the sheriff's department.
That's correct. I agree.
So how do we envision this audit committee looking? I mean, is this going to be a single third-party agency, or, I don't think this can be just a group of accountants. I think we got to have some folks that have law enforcement experience also, and can measure that and say, well, you're too heavy, you're too light, whatever the case may be. And I hear you guys say that we probably don't want any part in it, but I think we probably need somebody there, maybe just even as observers, to be there. Maybe some folks that are on both sides of the argument that can just be a part of that team, as observers, and ask those questions, and kind of an advocate for the other position, so it's not just one side just moving ideas.
I would nominate you, Ralph.
I was just getting ready to say the same thing. I'd like to have a member of the commission on the board.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to sitting on it.
I wouldn't have an audit committee. Charlie, you said you were looking at a firm that specializes, a CPA firm specializes in law enforcement.
That's correct.
We need to have somebody like that if you want to watch over their shoulder or something, but not give them any direction. That's what I'm worried about, having a board member on there. They're going to look to you and say, Commissioner, what should we look at next?
Yeah.
If you want to review the results, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I mean, it needs to be completely independent.
I mean, we could have someone from the clerk's office, just have, even if it's just observers, because I can't tell these guys how many lieutenants they need and how many captains. I have no idea, but from a citizen and from a commissioner standpoint, I might be able to throw some questions in there and say, hey, that don't sound right to me. Why don't explain that, or let's go into more detail so the public will understand that.
You know what I mean, though. If a group is hired by the board to do some work, and you're on the board and you're day-to-day overseeing what they're doing, they're going to turn to you and say, Commissioner, how do you want to do this?
Yeah.
What I would envision is them coming in and doing an audit, and then sit down with a group when they finish their audit and,
That's fine.
Explain it to
present
them.
Results or whatever, but not be involved in the audit. Like you said, you go out of town for 2 weeks. I know you were just joking, but we need to go out of town for 2 weeks too, leave them alone.
Yeah.
And then if you want to sit down with them when they're done and review things, then that's the time to question it, not while they're...
Well, let me say, first of all, I do not need another job. So I promise you, I do not, so I'm not looking for that. But I just want to make sure that whatever results we get at the end of this, we can feel confident that we got a good assessment, a good evaluation of that.
I think we should all maybe have a workshop after it's done and then present the results, just like we do our annual audit.
I agree.
And here's what we found. It's all out in the
I
public.
agree.
I'm also going to call Grover Robinson, chairman of Escambia County. They just went through an audit process, and I think the sheriff there had wanted a whole bunch more money, and they actually found where he could cut a couple $1 million here and there. So I'm going to ask him how they went about and the criteria they used, and try to get information to present to you guys to say, here's one that just went down, and here's how they set it up, and then I'll look and see who else has done them, and bring those options to you guys, and you can fight it out how you want to do it.
I think we have to see how much the different variations of an audit are going to cost.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not an inconsequential sum of money.
No, it's not. No,
a
it's not.
cost we can't afford not to use.
But I couldn't, I mean, it's something that shouldn't, you know,
No, I understand.
Sheriff's Department's not that big, so.
And, yeah, it's important to get it done. It's, you know, we've made the statement before, years ago, that we cannot not afford to do an audit. I
Mhm.
mean, this is not something new. This
That's
is,
right.
You know, this road has been gone down before, and for whatever reasons, it's never happened.
Right.
The boards rejected it, or it didn't take place. But I think in part of that mix, we need to understand what the cost is going to be and what our alternatives are.
Because when the big deal several years ago was operational audit of the board, I think the Auditor General said they would do it, but they would charge, and wasn't it like $200,000 or $300,000?
I think
Well,
so.
at one time, we had it offered to us that it would be of no cost, and our board refused to go down that path for whatever reasons. And then, yes, it was an exorbitant, well, not exorbitant, it's probably what it cost to have something like that done. That as they tightened up in those areas, apparently the state, they were less wanting to provide that service. Yes.
So you make
But I think also now the other thing that's important that we do and we talk about as well and establish, and I don't know whether you know, Charlie can work with me or Charlie can work with one of the board members or the board, and is develop a strategy to go after ICE. I got enough stuff to do. I don't mind helping out, but at the end of the day, that's something you politicians are really good at. And so my suggestion would be, I don't mind helping out, but at the end of the day, that's a
I don't own a suit and tie, so I can't go.
that's what I believe that
Yeah, we'll get you one.
you know, it needs to be some strategy. There needs to be strategy, but the biggest thing is develop a plan of attack, because you can't do it unless you have a plan of attack and you have multiple ways to get at it, and you have a system that says, okay, this week we're going to go hit here, and here's how we're going to step towards it. Because but the problem is this needs to get resolved, if at all possible, by, you know, end of May, 1st of June. Sure.
If I were doing
that's the
that-
urgency that we're talking about here.
If I were doing that myself, I would make an appointment with our senator, with the sheriff, and the ICE representative. You get them all in a room, but you got to have that senator, or you got to have that representative, and you got to have the ICE, you got to have the sheriff, and you got to have pretty much the administrator saying our county is having trouble because of this trouble. But you absolutely have to have your senator, and you absolutely have to have your representative.
Mhm.
So one day you make an appointment with ICE with the senator, and the next day with the representative, if that works. I don't think you put them both together. Maybe you could, but
Yeah, they don't have a sunshine law problem.
well, it'd be probably hard to get both of them together in the same room.
Only local officials have that.
But you got four parties. You got the representative who can promote your cause, and you got the sheriff that can explain it, and you can explain it, and the Iceman just listens. But I'm telling you, the Iceman will listen to power. He listens to the senators, where the votes come from. They listen really well, unless you're trapping on the votes. People don't listen to you.
There aren't any local jurisdictions that are getting squeezed for space, are there?
We could take their inmates. And I'm all for the lobbying, and, you know, I think we should do whatever we can, look at all options. The thing that I think hurts us, if I'm understanding correctly, for every $2 we bring in, we keep one of them approximately. Is that right? And to me, any business in the world would love to be in that situation. So that's kind of a hard sell when we're going up there and we're saying that we're not getting enough money, because our problem is not that we're not getting enough to be profitable in that endeavor. It's just we have estimated how much we are expecting to come in, and so really we've got more of a budgeting problem than we got a revenue source, because we're keeping nearly 50% of the revenue. So it's kind of hard to go up there and say, woe is me, when we're in that situation. I understand there may be other counties that's even worse than we are with their ICE situation, and so that may be a tough sell. But if we can do it, if there's a lobbyist that can help us squeeze more, I'm all for it.
Well, I don't necessarily think, I mean, it'd be nice to have more, but I would say the biggest thing with them is just is the stability. If they can just give us some type of guarantee that we can work with, it doesn't, you know what I mean, that because the problem is we've got, you know, we've invested all this money, and Charlie has to have and Trey and they have to have the same amount of people to guard 2 people as they do 200, so, or probably is a threshold there, but still, or 100. So therefore, you know what I mean, we're having to staff to a certain level. Y'all need to give us some idea that we can have some, because we're actually doing a benefit for them.
Right.
And we got to have somewhere in here where we meet middle, and I think that's where I would come in, or that's where we would come in and say, listen, we don't necessarily asking for more, would be nice, but if you could just give us some type of benchmark that we can every year we can say, we know we'll get this, and we'll take more, but we know we're going to get this amount of money each year. That way we can keep the facility functional.
When I try to think of things kind of from a sales standpoint, I can sell you something if I can show you how it benefits you.
That's right.
Then you want to buy it. And so I don't know if that's something that we consider. I assume that each of these counties probably have different options that are on the table, and I don't know, is there a flat rate or is there different structures? Can we go to them and say, we'll cut the cost per inmate, but we want a guaranteed revenue stream, and we've got capacity, we want to fill it up. It's going to be cheaper to send your inmates to us, but we need a guaranteed amount. I mean, I don't know if that's even an option.
There are 4 counties, Wakulla, Glades, Monroe, and Baker County, that are in this. We don't have the problems that Baker County's got. Baker County built a $32 million facility hoping that they could pay for it with ICE detainees. They guaranteed them $350 a day when they built it. I don't think they've hit 300 yet. They've got a problem over there. One thing, and I think I've explained it to all of you, if not, I'll do it again. ICE just built a $20 million facility in Tallahassee. They cannot house people there overnight. They've got a couple of holding cells. This is where they process them. They process them, then they shoot them out to probably just Baker and us, since we're up north. Down south gets most of theirs from the Chrome Avenue. But we are 20 minutes away from this facility, 25 minutes. Baker's 3 hours. So this is why I say they need us more than we need them, because if they get inmates or detainees in and they process them at 6 o'clock, they're going to have to call Baker to come get them, 3 hours, and then take them back and pay the expenses of the people transporting by the hour. They're going to have to do that. When I talked to this guy from ICE down in Miami that runs this region or whatever, he wasn't aware that Wakulla County, is so close to Tallahassee, to this new facility. He did not know the geographics. And when I told him, we're 20 minutes away. You call us, we can be up there in 20 minutes and get these people and bring them down to our place and house them for you. That's what we got going for them. That's what we need to tell the people in Washington when we sit down with the senator and the representatives, that, you know, we're 20 minutes away from your new $20 million facility, where you can't hold them overnight because you can't feed them. They don't have any food service there, and they don't have the rooms to hold them. So you need us. You don't need us pulling out, because if we do, it's going to cost you a lot more money than you're paying right now. But all we want, we've got our daily rate up to over $79 per person, is a guaranteed number. You know, it's bad business the way we're doing it right now. We can't budget because the way we're doing it right now.
Do they send them down there because that they have a guaranteed number to put into down there?
They don't have a guaranteed number.
So if they don't have a guaranteed number, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be bringing them to us.
That's exactly right. The only one that's got a guaranteed number is Monroe County, and I think their guaranteed number is maybe 50. And
how many hours?
All of Baker's or Monroe's money that's coming in, it's not targeted or earmarked for their budget. It's for capital outlay. So They don't.
I don't think they can generate it, but that's such a simple solution. Because we can't require ICE to generate more prisoners.
Right.
Oh, the economy will do that. If the economy comes up, they may be more. But so if we, it seems like just a real simple system.
It seems like it.
It would be in their best interest to
Okay,
max
we'll
out
guarantee you 80. We'll guarantee you 90 or 70. But we'll guarantee you, and that way we can look at our budget every year and say, this is how much we got coming.
Or just give us the ones that your overflow.
That's right. We'll take them. We had the deal worked out where we were going to go to Louisiana twice a month and pick up some detainees from Haiti, but we found out at the last minute that ICE wasn't living up to what they told us that was going to happen, so we didn't do it.
I would be in favor of lobbying. It would be in their best interest to max out our beds. I mean to be in this close economically.
Sure, it would. Yeah.
But I think Commissioner Thomas is correct, though. We have to get our pitch, if you may. You have to get our pitch down, and here's the benefits for you, and here's the benefits for us, and because it can't be just one-sided.
Okay. Well, I will get a hold of Senator Nelson's office, David, and I'll work with you on getting us a date to go up there. I don't know if I want to be on the same plane with you and Mary Dean together. We'll work that out.
You can put Mary Dean and David on the same plane.
Whew.
That's right. Mary Dean, she's good.
Greg can be there to referee.
Okay, well, you want to talk about ICE some more, or you ready to move on to something else?
Go on.
Let's move on.
Okay, we're going to finish this up a little faster than we thought. The next thing is I must say,
I want to thank you, Sheriff Creel, as well, for coming to speak. Thank you.
Miss Brandy and Greg, but mainly Miss Brandy, has taken our new spreadsheet that we do all of our budgeting on and has completely revamped it, and it's amazing. If we got this big work product that would cost us $5,000 or $10,000 in the open market, and we paid $99 for her to go to an Excel class, and we got the same thing. So we're trying to save money everywhere we can. But no joke. All jokes aside, Brandy has really done a fantastic job, and what we're doing now is we've got the trends that we've got going right now. We'll be budgeting. We'll start the budget process tomorrow with a kickoff meeting with all of our folks, and the good thing is unless there's an operational change that, for instance, and I'm just using this as an example, and I don't know if it's true, but say for instance we got enough, we're tracking a lot of different, everybody has to track performance measures, down from how many cheerleaders are cheering at the Pee Wee football game this year versus last year versus the year before, to to ambulance, how many times the ambulance leaves and how much money we make there. So, if, say, for instance, the only thing we don't have in here is we're going to be wanting from those guys is, say, for instance, Brian says, hey, this year we got 600 more kids came out and played soccer. We don't have the fields for them anymore, so I got to rent a field from somebody. I'm just using this as purely hypothetical. That would be the only things that we would necessarily add into these budgets if there was some operational issue based upon those performance measures that were pushing us there. We've got a couple of things that we're concerned with is moving forward is we still continue to look at our EMS billings, or we're back on par to where we should be, but the problem is we continue to the trend is continuing to tick upward of the days that we don't have, or the times that we don't have ambulances in the county. That continues to go up. Now, what number is the magic number that says we got to have another ambulance and another ambulance crew? I couldn't tell you. We're going to find out, but the problem is our county is a little different than a lot of counties because we don't have a hospital here, and that's the reason we have such a problem. Is our county, we have to transport to Tallahassee, which from the time, most cases, it's a 2-hour gig. So that ambulance is out of service for 2 hours, and if all the calls, which that's what happened, when they start coming, they come all in one shot.
Is there any way to joint with Leon County? The reason I say this is in the Oak Ridge Road there's an ambulance station. A lot of our population lives in that area up there.
We have actually had to call them in, but understand, sometimes they're out too. That happened the other day. They were not able to come in and cover us. They will respond, but they didn't have anybody to cover us, to cover their stuff either. You know, they were. It's funny. It's a lot. You almost you want to solve this logically, but then all logic goes out because you can't predict all the calls when they come in. Like Sunday mornings is one of our worst times. Makes no sense. So what we've done though is we have taken steps by cross-training our fire and EMS folks and getting them to be paramedics, and then our paramedics being fire folks. We've actually cross-trained where we're able to bring in that 4th ambulance, and then the 5th rolls into a supervisor. So I mean we've got 3 that roll, so we're able to get 4, and then the 5 without it costing the county any more money. So the problem comes though is as we continue to grow, and if this trend, the thing is we've just been tracking it now for the past 3 years, but if this trend keeps up, is where do we say, okay, this is a risk? I mean, naturally, anytime the county's without an ambulance, there's a risk, but you know, where does that risk? Where does it cross that? Where do those lines cross? I don't know. So, but that's what we're going to continue to monitor and continue to look at. And we're not saying we need money this year for that, but that's just something we need to keep in the back of our minds. That's a possibility.
The MSBU is fire
Yes.
only?
Yes, fire only. MSBU continues to be, that's something we got to look at, that in the future could, the chief he presented me his presentation. I'm holding his presentation, and we'll actually present it probably at another meeting. But clearly it shows that our participation from our volunteer fire force is just not there, and this is not anything with our citizens. It's just that's a national problem as well as a statewide and national problem. So we're really in a pickle as far as that's concerned, because right now River Sink is non-existent, and so is Wakulla Station to a degree. And we're covering those, but currently we have a problem with coverage from a fire protection standpoint, primarily in our northeastern part of our county. And so we're looking at ways to take care of that. The problem is we don't want to bring on any more permanent firefighters. We don't want to do that, but we also need some coverage up there, especially during the day. So we're going to have bring back some stuff, as well as we got aging equipment. We've just finished a complete audit of all of the equipment in the fire, and it's amazing at the age of the fire equipment. In fact, we went to a fire the other day, and one of the old fire trucks showed up, and we had issues trying to get the thing to pump, and finally got it pumped, but luckily it wasn't an emergency situation.
Will Leon County also respond to fire incidents?
They're what do you call it, mutual aid?
Yes.
Mutual aid, yes. But understand, every call that Leon County goes out on an ambulance call, right behind it is their fire truck. So they're constantly moving. So that's some things in the future that we're going to continue monitoring, we'll continue tracking, we'll continue to look at it and keep you guys up to date. We're not saying this year we need to do anything about that, but it could be that at some point in time we could look at possibly having to increase our MSBU so that we can primarily cover the northeastern part of the county. We're making some moves right now to cover that, but we're going to see if that works, and if it doesn't, then in the next couple of years we may have to come to y'all about looking at some more money, maybe. But for this year, I don't anticipate, as of right now, I don't anticipate any other than the fine and forfeiture fund. That's the only thing as of right now that is not performing as the way it should. Everything seems to be moving along fairly smooth. We've got a good grant revenue flow coming in, and so far our revenues are coming in as to where they should, with the exception of the CST That is underperforming, but not to a degree that's large enough to affect us. It's a small drop-off, but not a huge drop-off. We are concerned with a couple of things from the state. Our cost will be increasing from our Medicaid portion of the ACA, our share of ACA with ACA, and that will be increasing this year, and we've got it in our budget for this year as well as we have it for the next 5 years built in.
How about Obamacare? Is that going to affect us?
As of right now, no. Now, as they continue to read the law, possibly. But as of right now, we're okay with the positions that we've taken. Our insurance carrier has done a good job in helping us look forward on some of this stuff as best as she can.
I would think when they expand the eligibility for Medicaid, we're going to be responsible for paying for part of that, right?
Well, we're going to be responsible for paying much more in I believe it's 5 years out. Ours goes up, it doubles. Right now we're paying over 200 and what is that, Brandy? 277. It's going to double in 5 years, and that's from the state. Problem is that's the state implementing that, and also the state is looking at cutting into our revenues on the CST side, and by you do both of those, it's a double whammy to the counties. And you know they're looking at CST and some other places to cut taxes, state taxes, but all they're doing is saying, hey, we're going to come down to the counties and y'all got to cut here, and we got to absorb that cut as well as we got to pay for the extra expense they're putting on us. So they're really not, they're cutting, but they're not having to absorb the cuts themselves. So that's a big concern. But we're in the process of keeping track of all of the bills and everything that's going through. Cherie has done a really good job of doing that, and I feel like we have a good grasp on it. We met last Friday with the chairman and also with Chris Doolin, the Small County Coalition.
Emailer.
Huh?
The emailer.
The emailer. And we went over our packet with him that we gave to each one of the Senator Montford and Halsey Bashir's. So everybody's in concert now. Everybody knows what we're doing. FACT knows what we're doing, and so does those guys. So anyway, that's where we are with that. One of the things we're going to look at this year, we'd like to look at is we'd really like to have a cost of living allocation increase for our employees. In the budget year of 2009 and 10, our employees received their last raise, which was 1.18%. Since that time, we've experienced a healthy increased cost as well as state-mandated 3% contribution to the retirement. We've actually, our employees over the past couple of years have actually they've lost ground on their budget versus trying to make up any ground. They've actually lost ground on their budget, and we'll have a presentation for that. We think that we should do something this year for all of our employees because they realize that a lot of these cuts were on the back of a lot of these employees. There were furloughs, there were layoffs, as well as these folks haven't had a raise since 2009. So we've got, I know the sheriff has some issues with some of his parity, pay parity. I don't necessarily have that issue as of right now, but I cannot continue to not give some type of increase to our folks.
Now, Sheriff's Department aside, we have made pretty close on target for our reserve fund, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of off our bat. We don't need to set aside as much money every year.
No, and that's one of the things that we're some of the options I've shared with you guys where it showed us funding money to the Sheriff's Department, a portion of that. But I would be, unless something happens between now and we finalize the budget, we'll be at fund balance. And
what is that amount?
2.5 million.
Now, we came from 4 years ago from 0, more or less, to 2.5. And basically taking in the same amount of taxes and so forth, we will go up another 2.5 in 4 years. Everything being even.
Possibly.
And having no digging out here for $750,000.
Well, yeah, we can't be doing too much of that. If it wasn't for that, we would be having a little bit different conversation.
So basically, we're generating reserve
Right
balance.
now, we'll generate about, this year, if we hold serve on everything and we cut where we did as well as we collect, it comes down to revenue collection, we collect that EMS and the general fund, we'll have about $400,000 to the good we'll add to the bottom
Yeah.
line.
So basically, at 2.5 million, 4 years, we're doing 500,000 a year, 600,000 a year. So everything being equal and no unexpected, maybe.
Yeah,
This coming up budget, is there gonna be any deficit spending out of the reserve? Is it gonna be lower
It should
at the
be.
end of next year than it is this year? We got a lot of costs we gotta absorb.
well, we got a lot of costs. Right now, the reason we deficit spent last year was due to, that's the reason we pulled money out of reserves, was for, not only for that, but also to put the roof.
What was the deficit last year? In the
600
fine and forfeiture?
600
So if
something.
we made 500 extra, we spent 650, so.
Well, not in the now, the fine and forfeiture didn't have a deficit, well, it still had money in the
That
bank.
money had to be
That's right,
transferred
that's
over.
right. Right, but what I'm talking about is in the general fund, we decreased our reserves. We hit September 30, and Greg, you can chime in, or Brandy, we hit fund balance, save $1,000 or $2, September 30. Then we turned around and we stroked a check for the $247,000 for the roof on the sheriff's facility.
What fund was that?
That was come out of the general fund.
Was it sales tax?
No, that came out of reserves.
So it was just straight pure reserve, just like
Straight,
how the
pure,
community
straight.
center.
That's the reason that you've got reserves, though, is you have an unforeseen. We pulled that out, and then we pulled out for this fuel cleanout.
That
we
was
pulled
how
that
many?
out.
How many
It
dollars?
was right at $200,000.
So that's $500,000. The money.
And there was another 150, and Greg can give you a count. It all total was a little over
If the
$600,000.
sheriff's department gets, if y'all resolve that, which I have every confidence you will, I'm looking forward to your solution. If you resolve that, there will be no deficit spending the next year, or are we, you see what I'm saying? Are you able to do the COLA stuff? Are you able to do the health insurance? Assuming that issue gets resolved,
If we resolve the fine and forfeiture fund, we can give raises, and nothing happens, we can give raises next year without diving into reserves.
What is
If we can't solve the fine and forfeiture fund, and we have to fund, add funding to the sheriff's department, we may, according to that level of funding that need be, we could still give raises and maybe dive a little bit into our reserves, not much. But I don't know, we just gotta see what level it is. It's hard to tell.
What value's gonna do, Donnie, next year?
Donnie's tell you they're 15% down like he always does.
15%.
They'll be down, I'm sure. I don't think they'll be bad as last year. Drops you see are small. The new construction turns around, but that way you go.
It is picking back up, but it takes a while to flush through the system, I assume.
Say a permit full this year, year and a half, 2 years, you're gonna see the effect from it.
And you have depreciation, right, we gotta overcome.
Right. So
How many houses did you say we had to build a year?
About 100 new houses a year.
Just to break even, 100 a year. So how much are you gonna assume the ad valorem's gonna drop?
Right now, we've built into our budget I believe a 2% drop, isn't that what we talked about? Yeah, I think it was 2% we've already projected. We've already projected it, and we feel like that, like I say, we can come out next year, if we don't have to spend anything, we'll have about a $400,000 next year. We'll have about a $400,000 left over that we can put towards reserves. The problem is we've got a, and I normally say, well, wow, let's start throttling things back, but we can't. Number one, we got the jail bed revenue. Number two, we've got coming up very rapidly, as you'll hear tonight, very rapidly is DOT. They're ramping up their 319 operations, so therefore, that, how you say, how does that affect us? We have to relocate every utility line within the 319 corridor that's on our nickel.
I think I brought that up about 10 years ago.
Therefore, we'll be reserving, next year, we're gonna actually ask to reserve a portion of that overage has got to go towards building up a fund so that we can pay for it, so that we don't have it all in one shot.
Nanette remembers.
Nanette, she's just kissing up. But we've got that, and we've got a couple other things that we need to reserve for. to properly, because my thing is if we know something's coming down the road, we don't need to turn our eye to it. We need to say, okay, let's start putting some dollars towards that. We've got, good news is as well is our USDA loan/grant. Everything is in, everything has been completed, it looks good. We will be funded. We will be funded out of the new farm bill. Hopefully with the next meeting, there's a possibility, the next meeting or the first meeting in April, the USDA representative, Mary Gavin, will be down here to actually present us with it, and here's what you got to do next, etc.
Will that give us sewer where all?
That will give you sewer in Wakulla County. That will increase our sewer treatment plant.
So there won't be any problem with sewer in the north part of the county?
Well, we've got to get the lines there.
Yeah, okay.
That's our next problem. But right now we're at capacity. In fact, our mixed liquors have went up dramatically, and are they still up today, Brent? Our mixed liquor, is it up today? And that's an indication that we're biologically overloaded. It's one thing to be hydraulically, but we've continued this now for about a week. So we're at a point now to where we really got to be careful. Before, I wasn't too much worried about adding folks on because we were not showing any signs of being biologically over extended, but now we're getting those signs. So now we got to be careful, in which that's going to put a hurting on our economy because we've got some things coming up they're going to want to tie on that we may have some issues. So this comes at a perfect time.
Do you upgrade your stations to accommodate before you, of course you do that before you put the people on?
Yeah, and that a lot of the people you have to, and the person coming in, they have to upgrade the facilities for, the developer. They're putting in a large enough. If you come in and put another Walmart in, they'd have to upgrade a lift station somewhere. Because we're now, which what all municipalities do is if you're coming in, you have to show us from an engineering standpoint where when you put your flow in there, where do you make our system deficient, and then you fix where that is. Okay, within reason. So I was used to that in my previous life. I fixed many a system. That's where we are, and that's what I'm saying. We're doing good. We've got a lot of issues that need to get resolved, but also we got a lot of monies that need to be spent that we're not spending on currently. Looks like right now, one of the things we're looking at is what do we do with the Welcome Center where the TDC meets.
Could we, before we go on there, could Commissioner Merritt clarify that 100 home construction needed in order to break even?
My house, or anybody's house, I guess, depreciates every year. In other words, it's worth a little bit less every year.
Okay.
So if you take the total depreciation in the county, it takes 100 new houses.
Gotcha.
Just like people dying and getting jobs.
Okay. Depreciation.
And while we're here, since we're not televised, I'm going to read you an excerpt from a memo from 2006 I just wrote to Mr. Jerry Moore about sewer relocation. The cost of this relocation project will be expensive, and I recommend implement a funding method now to handle this expense when it arrives. So that's back when I had Cleve's job. This has been brought up.
Did you have Cleve's job? I didn't know that. But anyway, we don't need to bury our heads in the sand. We need to go ahead and fund for this because it is coming and it's going to be here. In fact, they've already notified, DOT has been notifying businesses along 319, notifying them to watch out for the scammers that are going to come in and say they can represent them to DOT. So the message is already out there. DOT is going to start buying right away. So therefore, we got to be ready because we just can't pull out $2 million all of a sudden and start going.
Let me give another good example on that line. We recently approved a subdivision for Ben Boynton on 319. Louis, you know what I'm talking about, little small lots. They happen to be right in the footprint of where the proposed right-of-way is going to be. So now instead of it being vacant ag land, it's lots. So we really need to watch things like that.
Most municipalities shut down within that corridor. They'll shut down any zoning. Okay. And a lot of times there have been people got in trouble over that.
We need to look, of course you guys are doing this, is when we approve new site
I thought we were supposed to be doing that. I don't understand how that happens recently.
Well, no, that happened a while back. That happened a while back.
Okay.
Well, I say recently, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess.
Well, it's still, I remember bringing that issue up when 3 or 4 administrators a go.
And the site plans, of course, you guys are looking to make sure we're set back so the right-of-way won't be as expensive. That's really, Tommy Barfield really stressed that to us.
Yeah.
He gave us an example in Pensacola where somebody built a hotel just for DOT to buy it. And it ended up costing them a lot of money, and they may shy away from our project if we're not proactive in making the land at least a little bit less expensive.
We make an attempt, but when push comes to shove, unless we say we're gonna compensate them for the right of way,
Right.
our hand at some time.
Could you amplify on that, Louis? Can you come up here? Because that's an important issue, because all the time we're speaking as prior boards, not wanting that to happen. If we have no authority to do it, then...
We could do a setback, I don't see why, I mean, Leon County does one, I know.
Oh, yeah, we do, you know, we have future right-of-way requirements that we look at. But if somebody says they want to put a building here and, you know, we think it's going to be taken for right-of-way in the future, until DOT issues I forget what it's called, the intent to take or the notice to take,
Wow.
you know, then we can't, that would be taking without compensation. They're compensated when the right-of-way is taken.
Wow.
But we do advise them, and we do
Can't deny
keep
someone
that
the
in
use of their
mind.
property, I guess. It may be 30 years before they four-lane that.
Exactly, yeah.
But you do it as much as you, within.
Thanks for explaining that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You know, one of the couple of issues we've got is, we're trying to figure out, I've got a little bit of an issue. I've got Rod Revel, I don't know if y'all know, he's very sick. He's my facilities and maintenance guy.
Know that.
Very sick. And so he's been out really for the past 2 weeks, even though he's tried to work. We finally had to, us and the doctor had to tell him just to go home.
What's wrong?
He's got a little bit of everything. He's got a bad gallbladder, his kidneys are failing, and so is his liver. So he's got his share of issues. We've got him on FMLA right now, and so I'm kind of lacking in that area. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to be probably spending a little bit of money to get somebody in here on a temporary basis to help us out, because we've got so many projects going on. We're trying to close up the community center, close up the sheriff's annex. We've got the Welcome Center, which is going to be a big undertaking. But one of the things I want to do with the Welcome Center is you know, the more people stay in there, the more problems we get. Is one of the things I want somebody to do is we need to look at that facility and see what it's going to take to upgrade it, because I understand there's some flooring issues in the upstairs. Am I right, Miss Virginia? There's also we all know about this issue. The ramps need to be completely redone. They're dangerous at best now, and so it may be that we're going to look at it and see what has to be done initially, but trying to find the funds for that is going to be interesting. So we may end up asking. After I analyze it a little bit further, I hadn't had time to work on it lately, but we may end up having to close for safety concerns, close it and move the TDC to somewhere else.
You've got to do something. If you hadn't done anything about that walkway,
Yeah.
you need to close it yesterday, because that is soft. Somebody's going to stick a leg right through that walkway.
It's also extremely slick, and the problem is we go down and pressure wash it, and we'll cut the board in two, I'm afraid.
Well, it's dangerous from the word go right now. You take a
Miss
man,
Virginia says she's
you
waiting
take
to
a
fall
man,
through the
you
floor.
take a man of your size, and you put 1 foot on one of those boards, you're going to go through
Are
it.
you saying I'm heavy?
No, I said of your size.
Why don't you have James take a hard look at it and see if it needs to be shut
It's
down?
dangerous.
Well, and that's one of the things to look at, because we may end up having to do that, and very quickly, so until we can fix it. So we cover COLA raises. The health insurance cost increase, we've already estimated at 5%. We're hoping that it won't be that much this year. We've actually got our, and I forget this acronym from year to year, but basically our loss ratio has come down some. So we're
Enormously high.
yeah, it was enormously high, so that's come down. And I don't know whether it was our attention to it that got CHP's attention or what it was, but it's come down.
My understanding was, because I asked about it, it was like COPD stuff was the biggest thing for loss. And
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it was.
Then one of the things I would like to ask you guys, if y'all could, over the next month is take a second and look at our 1 cent sales tax and any capital projects. We've got projects implemented out for 5 years, but if there's any projects that you are near and dear to your heart that you'd like to, we don't have a bunch of money that you'd like to see funded.
You sure you want to do that?
Well, we don't have much money, so your list can't be too lofty. 1 cent sales tax, but the problem is 1 cent sales tax, it was leveraged out, and it really ties you guys' hands to do anything.
Talking about paving projects or what?
Anything that goes along with public safety, which Mary Dean's going to argue that's her money.
I would maybe ask
Recreation.
us for suggestions, but don't
Well,
make
ask
a
us.
list of each district and
I'd make suggestions. That'll be just fine. Now, one of the things.
You're not lining that up for the future 1%, are
No,
you?
no.
Just for the remainder of
Just
this
for the remainder.
period.
That's right.
That's right.
So, any direction on that from you guys or any suggestions, we can go over that, and we will be going over that with y'all. So we'll be formulating the budget. We should kick it off next week. Tomorrow.
outside of our adopted infrastructure plan you're talking about, these projects?
I want you to stay inside the adopted infrastructure plan. Just pick and choose in that.
That clarifies it quite a bit.
Okay. Because that is our Bible. So, as far as capital projects is
No, my
concerned.
project.
Huh?
My project's the bridge.
I know. And that, we've got that funded, we're just waiting on the state right
Oh,
now.
yeah. Smash it down.
Matthew Sands, we're waiting on the state.
I got that grant.
Anyway, y'all have any questions of us? Any concerns?
I got a question.
Yes.
Is this young lady here for some sort of punishment or something?
Yeah, she actually helps us, and she's learning about government. She's a senior in high
I was wondering if
school.
some parents punishing their kids.
She's a Sanders,
Maybe
and
go to a
she was
board meeting.
bad, so, no, she wants to learn. She wants to learn about government. She wants to learn what's going on, so we...
David, let me ask you a
Learned
question.
it's very boring, didn't you?
And she competed in the swine show last week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't turn red.
Is there, on Skipper Bay Road,
Yes, sir.
we really need to have legal access, Can we get legal access? Is that possible? Is that road, whatever? That is the absolute best place in the world to put a kayak in. There's no place in this county as good to put a kayak in as on the backside of Piney and Spring Creek. There's so many oyster bars sitting right in front of that. And it's through the forest, it's beautiful. I think you may have some private ownership there, but if not, if we can have public access to Skipper Bay, to that, it's got a sandy beach
It is private, at the end of it.
at the end of
Right
it.
after the culvert.
Yeah, they built a bridge.
You actually just put a sign up, define county limits, we've got some green guides going down there, but, the Spears family owns the majority of that road.
Marshall Spears.
It's definitely still private property, and we gotta know if we don't go past.
That may be something
So
good for
that
future
is-
to look at buying from Marshall or somebody. It's mostly wetlands, I think.
Actually, I think it's 3 families down.
Yeah, I'm familiar with who owns that. I just didn't know if that was a public road there or not. It's probably not.
No,
Mr. Spears owns on both sides of it, I know, and,
and
yeah.
the road.
We have got a sign defining county maintenance.
He might grant access, I don't know. But, boy, that's a pretty place to do kayaks. And I'm seeing more and more kayaks now, just on a little bay at my house. There's probably 3 or 4 a day now.
That Blue Trail system really is gonna
Yeah.
kick in and...
They don't,
Remember when that grader got stuck at the
They
end of
don't.
Skipper Bay Road?
I heard the story over here.
One guy got stuck in his truck down there trying to put his boat in, so the guy drove his motor grader down there, and he really got it stuck. Aubrey couldn't get it out. Bad. That was my...
Y'all wanna hear from...
Well, I was gonna open it up while we have the other constitutional officers here, if any of them wanted to address the board with any issues, any concern.
Donnie, you always got something to say.
They know when to be quiet.
Oh, my gosh.
Same millage rate, right, David?
Same as right.
I would encourage us, whenever property values do start going up, I would recommend, this is several years down the road, that we keep the 8.25 millage rate. even if-
8.5, right?
8.5 millage rate, thank you. Even if it starts generating more revenue, let's keep it that, then we can start giving people raises and try to recover.
8.25 sounded good, though.
Well, and you're right, that's one of the things.
Consistent.
That's one of the things I've insisted. I've promised I'll keep it every year. We'll do what we have to. We'll live within those means, but when it goes up, there's a lot of things we need to correct.
Putting off.
Because the problem is, we're already seeing the benefits. We're seeing the benefits this year in our electrical cost because we were able to spend money last year and this year so far on replacing ACs. It's amazing at the amount of money that we're saving. So before we wasn't doing it, but that was just burying our heads. So we've got more of that we need to do to get better so that we can become, but the problem is we got to spend a little bit of money to save that money over the long term.
When we actually do have a rollback rate to look at, which we haven't had in a long time, that if we keep it consistent, if we keep the millage rate the same, then we can start doing some.
Well, I think we'll recover just a little bit, and then a year or two or 2 years after that, we can probably say, okay, now let's pare things back a little bit.
We were following the roll-up rate. I don't know what our millage would be right now. If we followed roll-up rate
over
from 2
9
years
from
ago,
last
It was
year.
over 9, yeah.
close to 10 now. If we followed it from 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, so.
I am in favor with like I said, giving our employees a cost of living raise. I think they need it and they deserve it, and I hope we're able to do that.
Afford it. That'd be all the
To
sheriff's
afford it.
department too, right?
Yeah.
It'd be everybody, right? Okay.
Even though they've already got one, but that's okay. I'm sorry, Mary Dean, I had to say that.
Well, it's true.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas, you got anything?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Kessler? Dr. Kessler, I should say, I'm sorry.
Well, I think part of the problem that we're seeing is if we don't make conservative budget estimates, we got ourselves in more trouble. And that has been the scenario for this budget year. So getting a realistic handle on things and not saying, oh, we're going to do better by this much and then spend accordingly is not going to work. So I guess the only thing I have to say.
The jail bed is a real wild card. I think they're doing pretty good conservative on the village, the property values, right? And you only budget for what, 98% of revenue?
95.
95, so that's inherently conservative.
No,
Yeah, we try to be as conservative in everything, and the biggest thing is just, we're making sure that we're watching where our dollars are going and we're paring back over the year as we can. So, but like I say, it was difficult. It's been difficult the past 2 years trying to keep the budget intact because of the issues that we were having with older stuff breaking down all over the place. And when that happens, you keep functioning or you repair. And but we're getting better at that. We're getting some more equipment coming in. We've got another tranche of that to go through next year, but we still think that we'll be every year we can tend to get a little bit better and better.
That is sheriff's office. If what we were saying earlier, if we were able to successfully lobby ICE to give us a guaranteed number that we could budget and work with, wouldn't that resolve a lot of that would basically eliminate that problem, wouldn't it?
No.
It wouldn't eliminate it, but it would go a long way towards resolving
Let's
it.
say they say, fine, we'll guarantee a number, we'll guarantee $1 million a year. That means we got to cut $1 million. Well, at least we'll know where we're at, but
That's
we
right.
know we got to cut $1 million.
Right.
Or cut the
It
program.
would give
probably.
stability.
That's right, you cut
It would
the
give the
program in half.
stability to make the plan. Right now, we have neither one of the two things.
A
We
good
don't have.
analogy, I guess, would be if you work for yourself, like me, your revenue goes up and down,
Yeah.
but if I go get a regular job, I'll know what I'm going to get. Even if I don't make as much, at least I know I'll get a paycheck. And
Is there any way that we can do both the operational audit and the lobbying to devise the lobbying plan at the same time?
We need to do both, yeah.
They need to both be running concurrent,
They need to
parallel
run
one
concurrent.
another.
That's exactly right.
On the lobbying, we're not asking for anything. On the lobbying that we're talking about, we're not asking for anything. We're just
According to how it
asking them-
is, it's just more along the lines of maybe using our attorney that's in D.C. to help us with some specific language while we're up there, but really it's face-to-face time with the
It's just that,
powers
hey,
to be.
we're right here, and you not promise those folks anyway. We get them in 20 minutes. They get them in 3 hours. That's
It
not.
comes, as Commissioner Thomas, it comes a sales pitch.
I think we ought to.
Show
I
them
think
how
we
it
ought to.
benefits them.
I think we ought to buy Cleve a striping machine, not a striping machine, but in maintenance of your roadways, you pay for it one way or the other, if you take the cracks in the roadways, everybody who has a parking lot will put a band of asphalt down those cracks to preserve that, because if you don't, your roads are gonna break apart. And that's just that's a preventive maintenance that's on one of your most expensive items.
Yeah, Nanette.
Obviously, Nanette did not get the shirt memo today, because obviously the ESG color is garnet. So.
You know, I hired her. I don't know if
You
I
hired
ever
her?
told
You had Cleve's job then too, didn't you?
Yeah.
All right,
Whenever
okay.
if he was asking for the list earlier, I guess if I had anything to put on a list, like me and David's talked about it before, that one thing that I'm hearing a whole lot from is from the residents that live in the western part of the county in the Smith Creek Road, that the primary lines for that road have basically evaporated. As soon as you leave Leon County line coming into Wakulla, there's just no lines. And so I've had more than one resident tell me that they're at nighttime, you know, that they just can't see no lines. So they're like driving in the middle of the road because there's no lines. They're just trying to stay between the ditches.
Well,
So,
I did that the other day, and I called Cleve after that, and he's promised me he'll go and get it done. But what we need to do initially is replace all the busted up little yellow reflectors, because at night, if you've got all the reflectors in, you can see the center line and you can stay on it.
Yeah.
But
They just got nothing up there right now.
A lot like the striping on my parking.
When you talk about those, I mentioned to Cleve, if you come down from Sopchoppy to Angelo's, that road is so narrow, by the time they stay out of hitting those little yellow markers, on the inside of every curve, they go off and chew the. Why not put those markers in the center of the road? You got 2 lanes on a curve anyway.
Supposed to have double in a non-passing.
Well, that's
and
fine. Just
single in
put
a
the little
pass.
markers in the center of the double. You don't have to put the markers on the outside of the double.
Okay. Well, I don't know who did that, but DOT.
It really causes you to go on the inside of that curve and crumble up that inside of that curve.
Yeah.
I go down through there going bump.
And the 6-inch wide.
Okay. Well, our attorney is advising us to stay within the call of the workshop. She's been with me here for about 5 minutes now. So unless y'all got anything else, and unless Donnie don't have anything to say, we need to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Did we hear from the Constitutional?
What we had said it one thing.
Okay.
All right, so if there's nothing left, we'll go ahead and close out the workshop. Thank you.
What's next?